Well, I'd like to welcome. We have one person in person tonight, otherwise the rest are online. I'd like to welcome you guys here. Barb is here. She is also a Wood County Master Gardener. She's stepping in for Donna tonight. And I'm so super excited about this. We're learning how to make our homegrown national park in our own backyard. Sorry, because it's really cool. But we're so thankful for the Wood County Master Gardeners for doing these programs for us. They volunteer their time and all their knowledge for these programs. So if you are online listening tonight or watching tonight, if you have a question, put it in the chat and I'll try to catch Barb and get those questions answered too. And same with you. Shout out your questions and we'll get them answered too as we go.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to leave it to Barb.
Thank you so much. So again, my name is Barb Harride. I'm a member of the Wood County Master Gardeners, and I actually live down in Adams County and originally came from Madison. So I moved up here in 2004, and I just really like this part of the state. It's just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful area. And I have become more and more interested in native plants and why they're important and things like that. So the presentation that I put together here is about a new concept called the Homegrown National Park. And so we're going to go through and understand how it came to be, what it is, and how you can get involved with it. So I want to start off by introducing to you Doug Tallamy, and he is a professor at the University of Delaware, and his area of, his field area is entomology, which is the study of insects. But what is really, really encouraging is that he not only wants to know about insects, he wants to know why they're important and why they're important to biodiversity and to the whole food web and everything. So he's really taken a big picture view of it, whereas a lot of entomologists just focus in on the little insects and don't worry about anything else. So he has written 3 books, and I've got them up here. So Josh, if you want to stop up here later and take a peek at them or anything, they're all really good. His first one that he introduced was called Bringing Nature Home, and then he went to Nature's Best Hope, and then the following book was The Nature of Oaks, and it's strictly about oaks. And as we go through this presentation, you'll see why he focused a whole book on oaks and why they're so very important. If you aren't wanting to look at all 3 books, the one that I would suggest that gives you the best information is Nature's Best Hope. It really is geared towards us understanding why biodiversity matters and what we can do as gardeners in our own yards. So like I said, his area of expertise is looking at not only just insects, but the whole big picture of things like that. So let's start with something that a lot of us just love. We love our songbirds. You know, as I've gotten older, I've grown to appreciate having bird feeders up in my yard, attracting the birds, having a source of water. I've got a waterfall. I also have bird baths in the yard, and all of these things attract birds. But there is a huge problem with songbirds, and that is the decline of them. In the last 100 years, we've really switched from being a rural society to a city and suburban society. And so in the whole process of that is cities and suburbia has been developed. A lot of the native plants that were there all along have now been replaced. And we put in parking lots, we put in buildings, we put in all sorts of impermeable surfaces that don't provide the habitat that the critters in the food web require. Another big thing is the use of herbicides, whether it's an insecticide or pesticides or fertilizers. All of these things can impact birds a lot. And invasive plants have come in more and more. And what's important to know about invasive plants is that as they come in, they don't have any natural predators within our society here. So they just grow on parallel and they will push out a lot of the natives. And so we want to make sure that that doesn't continue to happen, because most of the insects and the things that we need in the biome here need to have a food source, and they don't go to invasive plants because they're non-native. One study that was done in 2019 indicated that in the United States and Canada, we've lost more than 3 billion birds in the last 50 years. And a lot of that is just because of all of these changes to the environment that we have. So you've heard the term a food web. Well, plants play a very important role in the food web. They are the kind of the base of the whole thing. They're really unique in that they are producers, which means that they can take sunlight and they can create their own food source. They don't have to go out and find food, they create their own through photosynthesis. But not only do they create the food that they themselves need, they also feed a lot of other critters, whether it be insects or caterpillars or all sorts of things like that. So they're really kind of the basis of the whole food web that's out there. And we're going to see here in a couple seconds how important caterpillars are to the songbirds. Okay, a lot of caterpillars will only go to specific plants, and so they go there, and that's where they're going to, go through their life cycle and create butterflies and different moths and things like that. So if they don't have a source of those plants, they either die or they go excuse me, go elsewhere to find those things. Give me a second. So we take a look at how important caterpillars are to the songbirds. They are the biggest mainstay of the diet as the parent birds are feeding their new hatchlings. So they can either go out and pick up, say, 200 aphids, or they can pick up a caterpillar. I mean, that's really kind of the equivalent of an It doesn't take rocket science to figure out that they'll go for the caterpillars, they'll bring those back to the nest, and they're a really good source of protein and nutrients for the birds, but they're also soft and very easy for them to digest. It also means less trips for the parents to have to go out and bring food back. Studies have shown that the parents, and both the male and the female, will be feeding the baby birds, but they make 150 or more trips per day to feed it. So if you've ever had a nest in your yard and you take a look at it and see the birds when after the eggs have hatched, you'll notice that the parents are coming and going quite a bit. So one of the things that's really important to think about is if they have to make that many trips each day, they're probably not going to want to go a long distance. So studies have shown that they usually will look for their food within a 200-foot radius. And so that's our yards. And if they can't find it in your yard, they're going to go to some other yard to do it. So if you enjoy seeing them, you need to do things to create that. So if we take a look at native plants, you can kind of think that native plants are sort of the 2x4s. If we were building a shed or something like that, the native plants would be the 2x4s that make that structure for the shed or whatever we're going to build. And if we look at 14%, or look at all of our native population, approximately 14% of those native plants are the ones that support 90% of the caterpillars. So there are some native plants that are better than other native plants. And those plants are generally referred to now as keystone plants because they're just very, very important. Again, as we mentioned earlier, non-native plants are ignored by caterpillars because they were not a part of the original food web that was established here. So if we want songbirds to breed and reproduce, we really need to provide them with the plants that they need to attract the caterpillars that they will be eating. So how do you know what those keystone plants are? The National Wildlife Federation has a website, and you can go to that website and you can put in your zip code, and it will bring up a list then of flowers and grasses as well as trees and shrubs. As they're listed here, it'll show the name of the plant and then there's a number after it. And that number represents the number of species that will feed on that particular plant, that need that for their survival. So you can see geraniums, and these would be the perennial geraniums. They have a score of 24, but look over in the other column for trees and shrubs. Oaks, 389 species. And one thing that's really interesting is that in different parts of the country, different insects in that area are supported by different plants and things. So in, like, say, New England, the oak tree is king there, and they support over 500 different species of insects and caterpillars. So it's just a really interesting thing to be able to do it. So I put in the Nakusa zip code. That's my zip code. I live down in the town of Rome, and that's part of the Nakusa post office. So that's where I am. So these are what they are. And so if you're thinking about incorporating more native plants in your garden, then this would be a good place to start, because it kind of identifies which ones are going to bring in more things that you want to see to support the roots. Okay, have you ever felt like you're a servant of your lawn? It's just really amazing to me how much lawns have become so important in suburban America. And it's almost to the point that's a status symbol. You know, the problems is that they're very high maintenance, not only in your time, but in water and gasoline and all of those things that go into creating the lawn and keeping it looking nice and everything like that. It's replaced a lot of the native habitat that was there. So it just really has impacted songbirds because of that. So it's estimated that in the United States, there's 40 million acres that's been dedicated simply to lawn. And that's equivalent to the size of New England. So that's a lot of lawn mowing and things like that. And oftentimes, if you're really into your lawn and you want to make sure that it is pristine, there's not a single weed or dandelion in that lawn, there's a high use of pesticides, and those two are very detrimental to the food web. So I want to read this quote because it's really important. It's from Professor Talamy. He said, "What if each American landowner converted half of his or her yard to productive native plant communities? Even moderate success could collectively restore some semblance of ecosystem function to more than 20 million acres of what is now ecological wasteland." So that's kind of his thought process, or his idea behind what we're going to learn about the Homegrown National Park. So he said, what if we could reduce that 40 million acres of lawn in the United States and reduced it in half? It would mean that there'd be 20 million acres set aside for conservation that would replace grass with native and would really help the whole biodiversity of our world. So right now, 20 million acres is actually larger than all of the national parks combined. So just wrap your mind around that. If you've ever been to a national park and you just see how immense these things are. You think of the Grand Canyon and the grandeur of everything like that. But if you take all of the national parks in the U.S. and combine it all together, the acreage that they do, that's less than 20 million acres. So Doug Tallamy's idea here is to create a new national park by planting native plants and removing invasive plants from our own personal properties. It would be the biggest national park in the country, and so he has called it the Homegrown National Park. So what exactly is it? This is something that was just started up about 2 to 3 years ago. And so it's kind of a grassroots call to action to help regenerate biodiversity in our ecosystem. And it is pulling on people understanding why this is important and wanting to do something about it and having a way that they can do something right in their own backyard. So it's just the largest cooperative conservation project that's ever been even conceived or attempted. The initial goal is for 20 million acres of native plantings in the United States. And this represents half of the green lawns of our current world. Okay, so the firefly, or what we usually call as the lightning bug, is kind of the symbol that they are using for this. So if you decide that you want to incorporate natives into your yard and everything, and you go to the website and you log in and say, yeah, I want to help this, I want to become part of this movement, you will be considered a firefly too. So they chose that because not only is the firefly facing extinction, but it indicates or represents individuals who plant native will light themselves up, delight in me, and lighten others, just like fireflies do. So here's some current statistics. Right now in the US and Canada, there's over 35,000 people that have signed on to this system and are now fireflies. I'm a firefly. You can be one too. So it represents all 50 states, also Canada, and over 6,000 zip codes. Currently, there's over 95,000 acres that have been planted. So there's a long ways to go to get to 20 million, but in just a short time since it was started, it's really been growing. So the goal for 2022 was to have 55,000 acres, and then by the end of this past year that just ended, the goal was 125,000. So they didn't quite make that, but they're close to it and they're growing, and so it is something that is just very encouraging for the future. So the statistics that we just looked at, those were compiled by people that go to the website and sign up, and it doesn't cost anything. It's just you sign up and say, I want to be part of this. So I'm on the map. I live on a lake, and so I know how important it is to have a shoreline that is such that it doesn't create problems for the water quality of the lake itself. But also, native plants are really, really important because they have such deep root systems that as they sit along the shoreline there, they actually will work as filters, that if there's anything, any runoff coming in after storms and things, it'll get collected by those roots and it won't be going into the water to cause problems. So I've always kind of thought of the importance of native plants, but once I read his books and had this program explained to me, I said, oh, I've got to do even more. So my garden is, probably I'd say about 70% native plants. I still enjoy having ornamentals and plants that come from other countries that do it, and you don't have to be 100% native plants. We are all gardeners. We all have our likes and our dislikes. And so it's just a way of putting plants in. So you can start real small. You can have just a small area maybe that you want to have set up to attract pollinators or monarch butterflies or any of those types of things. And you can set goals. If you go to the website and sign up as a firefly, you can set a goal for yourself that, maybe next year I'd like to do an area that's 20 feet by 10 feet. And so that would be my goal to do it. And then when you do achieve it, you can log in and say, hey, I've got this much done. So how does Wisconsin fit into this whole thing? Right now in the U.S., we're ranked 13th in the amount of plantings or people that are participating. So Wisconsin itself is made up of about 34 million acres. And there are currently 973 fireflies, and they have over 1,000 planting areas that have been set up. So like I have my own yard. I also have a volunteer garden that I work at. And so as we incorporate native plants into that, that can be another site that can be set up. So that's why there's more plantings listed than users on there. Right now, the total number of acres in Wisconsin is 1,704. So we're getting going, but we need more people to participate and to really work on this. So here's some ideas for things that each one of us can do. First of all, shrink the lawn. Okay, to me, this is a win-win situation. You can cut down on the amount of time that you spent mowing, and you can have a beautiful garden instead in that area, and also help to attract more of the insects and caterpillars and birds into your yard. Remove invasive species. This is just really, really important to get them out and not let them to continue to grow. The big thing is that maybe there's not a lot of them in your yard, but they all produce a lot of seeds that wind will carry, and that they'll be spreading into other people's yards and then into public lands and things like that. So it's really important to get rid of them. The keystone plants, those are the powerhouse plants. So that's a good place to start. And as I've grown in my gardening life, I think the biggest piece of advice I can give anybody is to start small. You don't want to take your whole yard or half of your yard and try to do more than what you're capable of doing. So take an area, a small area for this year, set that as your goal, and if you can keep up on it and still feel like you have more time in the future, you can add to it. So you want to increase the abundance and the diversity of plantings. You don't want to take out some of your lawn and then replace it with just one plant that's in big multiples. You want to have, it's from a beautification standpoint, it's going to be much more beautiful if there's a lot of different plants there. They'll just look more interesting, and you'll enjoy them because some of them need to be taken care of at different times of the year. You want to plant for specialist pollinators. The keystone plants will kind of do that, but let's just say you really want to get in on the monarch butterfly thing. Well, you can find out the types of plants that they need, or maybe it's a swallowtail butterfly. Just figure out what types of things that you want to attract into your yard. And there's all sorts of sources online or in books that'll tell you what plants that particular species needs. So that's a good way to start. You want to put in a water source, whether it be bird baths or ponds or a waterfall or anything like that. That really not only attracts the insects and things, but the birds will come. It's fun to watch them take a bath. And last but not least, this is probably one of the biggest things, is eliminate the use of herbicides and pesticides, because they kill more of this wildlife that you're trying to attract. And you don't want to lure somebody in just to kill them. So here's how you can join the movement. You just go to the webpage, homegrownnationalpark.org, and then you can, if you want to start doing this, you can sign up as a Firefly. And if you do volunteer work someplace, or you have a business that you'd like to incorporate some of these things, you can do the same thing with those places as well. The other thing too is if you like this idea and you've got people in your neighborhood that are gardeners and are looking for some guidance or whatever, encourage them to get involved with it too, and to really think about this. But again, start small. But small changes can make big differences. So if more and more people get involved in this Homegrown National Park, it's going to be better overall for a lot of different things. So that's my presentation, and I guess at this point, I'll take questions.
Yeah, thank you. I already looked up the site. It's a really neat little site.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Did any
We
questions?
do not have any questions online. So
No.
if you're watching online, go ahead and post them in the chat, and I'll get them asked and answered.
Okay.
But
And I do have up here just some handouts if you're interested in any of those here. 5 easy steps for beginners from Doug. There's also a interview article that was in Fine Gardening Magazine with Doug Tallamy, and then a blog here about why biodiversity is important. And then the other two things I brought are really good sources for native plants. These are Prairie Nursery, which is in Westfield, Wisconsin, so it's just a little ways away from here. The catalog alone is just just full of information that will really help you to kind of decide what you want to do. It has it all broken down into categories. So like if you have sandy soil like I do, or if you have clay soil, if you have wet soil, or really dry soil, it'll tell you which kind of plants will do real well in that area. So that's a real good resource. You can just go online to their website, Prairie Nursery, and order a catalog. It'll come out, and this is from 2022, but it's just chock full of good information. And then there's another one over in Winona, Minnesota called Prairie Moon Nursery. Same thing, a lot of really good information in there.
Is that where you get most of your native plants through mail order?
Yeah, or through Master Gardener sales, but I do a lot of mail order. There's a garden over in Wild Rose, Wisconsin, and she has a lot of native plants that she offers as well. So I think native plants are becoming kind of like the hot issue within gardening in the last couple of years. I think more and more nurseries are going to be offering them. But if you're looking for something specific that your local nursery doesn't have, mail order is great. And they package it really well. You may pay a little bit more for shipping, but you get the plants that are in really good shape. It's worth it.
we have a question.
We do.
Do we know if there's any restrictions for what you can plant in the town of Marshfield?
I am not from the town of Marshfield.
Yeah, I'm
so
trying to
I can't.
think.
Native plants should not be an issue
Yeah.
at all.
Mm-hmm.
There are, within the state of Wisconsin, there are invasive species that the DNR has identified that it's against the law to plant those things.
Yes.
So I don't know how else to answer.
Wonder if they're thinking too, if like some places have ordinances on like lawn, like if you let the lawn get too high,
Yeah.
but
if it's the town of Marshfield, it's probably a little bit more suburban or even more rural. And I wouldn't think that there'd be those kind of issues. It's usually in the cities that there's an issue with it. But there's Wild Ones is a national group that was started here in Wisconsin that has promoted native planting for many, many years, and they've been very active in approaching different cities that might have ordinances against it and getting them to understand that it's not good. the gardener still has to take care of it. You can't just let it go wild and things like that. So, anything else?
So I was just looking up in the city municipal code because we happen to have a copy.
Oh, you do?
So I was
Okay.
trying to see if there is anything because that's where it would be, correct?
Uh-huh.
And I'm sure there's some, something about lawn restrictions and stuff. But let's see.
I think the big issue lately has been chickens. And there's a lot of ordinances either for or against, or, at least restricting what can and can't be done.
What about invasive bugs like the Japanese beetles?
Yeah.
What do you recommend with those sort of things?
The big, the easiest, I don't have a problem with them because I'm a sandy soil in my area and they don't seem to like that. So, if I see a handful of them in the course of the summer, that's unusual. But most of my friends who garden in Wood County where there's more clay soil, the thing that they found to be the most effective is to take a pail with soapy water in it and just go out and pick them and put them in there and they'll drown and go away. The traps that they sell you are horrible because they'll pull in more coming from other yards that never would have come to your yard without that trap being there and pulling them in. So the ash borer is another thing that's really big right now and it's really affecting this area quite a bit. So, I have, when I bought the house that I live in now, there were 3 ash trees in it. I know I'm losing one this year. The other 2 are, they're on the decline as well. But the way that I look at it is instead of having 3 of the same kind of tree in the yard, now I can go with 3 different types of native trees and it'll be, a much better situation. So it's a little stuff here and there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I found where it talks about weed control. And trying just quick peeking ahead to see if there's anything else. But that's so far the only thing I can find is that the owner of any land within the city shall destroy all noxious weeds as defined below which grow on their property and on any terraces or ditches abutting their property. And then there is a long list
of all things that you wouldn't want to have in your garden.
Anyway. So like Canada thistle, leafy spurge, field bindweed, which is also called creeping jenny. Yep. Goldenrod is listed, better ticks, black-eyed, which surprises me. Burdocks, cattails, chickweed, cockleburs, cockcows, fanweed, pennycrust, fleabane, daisy, giant rake. Now, are those white daisies that you see native or not?
Well, they are, but they're aggressive.
Okay.
So that's
because I have some that popped up in my little flower garden all by itself, but I just kind of left them because they didn't take over anything, but they came up all by themselves.
Yeah, like we were saying that some natives are better than other natives. Mm-hmm. So I would say the daisy is a native plant, but it just takes over. Yeah. So it's not a good native.
Yeah, giant ragweed, lamb's quarters, milkweeds, which is weird.
That is weird.
I wonder if these haven't been updated lately. Because mullein, common mustard, ball myrtle, stinging nettles, oxeye daisy, peppergrass, field pigweed, poison ivy, common ragweed, sandbur, shepherd's purse, smartweeds, annual spurges, stick tights, bull thistle, tumbleweed, witchgrass, yarrow, which is another native plant, isn't it? Yeah, and goldenrod too.
There's one. Well, what we normally put in our garden is yarrow is a hybrid.
Okay, sure.
And the native has got a white flower.
Yeah.
Spreads a lot.
Yeah. Milfoil, quack grass, snapdragon, toadflax, sourdock, yellowdock, wild barley, poison sumac, purple loosestrife, spotted knotweed, brush, woody stemmed plant, and then other wild grasses over 6 inches in height.
quite a list.
Yeah, yep. They even have a position called the weed commissioner,
Ooh.
according to this. And this is, when was this dated? I don't remember what the date on these are, but no, it was funny. So yeah.
So how have you, did you garden when you lived in Michigan?
A little bit.
So well, we're a little colder here than Michigan is, because they get the benefit of the lake there. But have you found differences in the type of soil?
It's probably a little more clay easier.
Mhm.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think the cold is the difference. You're probably about 3 hours further south.
Yeah. Okay, so are you from the southern part of Michigan? Okay, yeah, so that's like at least a whole zone, maybe even 2 zones different.
Which they just updated the zones. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because we went down a zone now, didn't we? Here?
Yeah, you know, there's like an A and a B within each zone.
Yeah.
And I know like where I live, it didn't really change. I was 4B before and I'm still 4B. But, you know, other parts of the state, I mean, there's hardly any zone 3 in Wisconsin anymore.
Yeah.
And it used to be, you know, a lot of the Northwoods was zone 3.
Mm-hmm.
So it has changed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I keep track of, you know, where I live on a lake, I keep track of when the ice comes on and when it goes off. And, you know, there's less and less ice over time in our winters. It's really changed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, things are changing. So, any other questions?
Oh.
Okay, all right. Well, you're welcome to come look at the catalogs or the handouts if you'd like some. Help yourself. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.